a police investigation into the kidnapping of the Moti brothers from Limpopo has stalled. This after their father interdicted the police from speaking to the children. It's believed that the family relocated to Dubai. The siblings were snatched at gunpoint on the 20th of October 2021 and released unharmed 3 weeks later. eNCA's senior reporter Barry Bateman is chasing the latest and joins us now for an update. So Barry, confirm for us then at this particular point, one, the issue of the interdict, and two, the question of whether or not the family has relocated to Dubai.
Yeah, on that question of the interdict, it's the police that we've got on record, having spoken to the spokesperson, explaining to us the details of what the court has ordered against the SAPS. And the court has ordered the police that they may not have any contact with the 4 boys nor any member of the Moti family. So that whole family unit, basically, has been precluded from being questioned by the SAPS. It is also the police that have confirmed to us that, according to their records, they would be working through Department of Home Affairs, for example, that the family has, in fact, left the country. But that is further confirmed by a person who spoke to Talk Radio 702 a little earlier today. I went and listened to that interview. We spoke about earlier. I actually went and listened to that to hear what he had to say.
Nazir Osman, is it?
That is correct, Nazir Osman. And he has further confirmed that the family has left for Dubai. On the issue of the interdict, he denies that any such interdict was obtained, which is why I actually went back and listened to that interview with the police again. And I actually double-checked it with them in the interview. So are you saying this father actually went to court and got this order against the police? He said yes, and he went through what the order details were. We're still trying to get our hands on that. The police say they're trying to secure it from their legal department.
Yeah, I mean, that should be straightforward. I imagine that the police should be able to assist us.
Absolutely.
Because an interdict is a public document.
That's the point, yes.
Yeah, and this would be a major stumbling block, is it not, Barry? Because how do you investigate a crime like kidnapping without the affidavits of the people involved, who were the actual victims, and presuming, and I was listening to people like William Booth and Ulrich Roux.
Yeah.
Who's the complainant? Witnesses? How do you proceed with this investigation?
I mean, it's a critical link between the various parties. Those children are they would provide that first-hand account of the actual people who held them captive. They were gone for 3 weeks. They must have seen and heard a lot in that period. I mean, you and I might think it's insignificant when they might be locked in a room, they don't see out the windows, but they just hear conversations through a locked door. But for investigators who are used to dealing with these kinds of crime, they could glean any little bit of information from that which could contribute to this bigger picture of trying to track down who these people were. Of course, there is other evidence. Phone calls were made to the father's phone call family. That type of thing they'd be able to rely on. The electronic evidence you'd be able to gather, and maybe what was said to the parents or whoever was spoken to when they were informed that there was this crime. But that next step, the next step in the investigation would be the actual victims and obtaining statements from them in a manner which is useful to the investigation but also presentable in court.
Yeah, completing the picture, direct evidence and hard evidence, but also complementing it with, the evidence of people who were involved in this process. So there's a bit of that difficulty, particularly with the statements of the 4 Moti brothers. But adding to the intrigue, Barry, are the details that we are learning around the investigation, initial investigation, as well as the negotiation process, because there was a negotiation process, but now we're learning details as to whether or not the police were involved in that.
Yeah, and what I understand here is that the police played no role whatsoever in securing the freedom of these children. What we understand is that a company that was based in the UK, they took over the negotiations with the kidnappers, and I understand that they were actually conducting these negotiations from the UK. So there wasn't an actual team that was sent to South Africa, but this particular expert company that deals with these kind of crimes was handling the negotiations while abroad. They're the ones who ultimately secured the release of these children, and has previously been reported by News 24, that ransom of 50 million rand was paid over. So while we got this statement that was issued by the family after the release that they thank the police for, assisting them in this particular matter. What we know in the background is that the police played no role in this.
Sure. And this raises the stakes, Barry, and I guess it takes me back to society and the public's interest in having as much detail on this case as possible. Because if we are talking the involvement of international negotiators in a case such as this, if we are talking ransoms being paid, we have to worry as a society that could we be looking at the makings of a kidnapping industry in South Africa, which implicates the interests of justice for all of us. So in a way, it's not just about the Moti brothers here. It becomes a societal issue, does it not?
You're spot on, and I think the term here is crime does pay, perhaps. And that, if there is no accountability for what has taken place, if justice does not follow through, which results in the conviction of those responsible, it certainly does send a very difficult message, particularly because the lack of a conviction is the result of the lack of cooperation by the victims themselves or through their parents. I also want to be very clear as well, we are dealing with minors. So
yeah.
There is an additional level of care and sensitivity that goes around an investigation of this type. So we mustn't forget that particular aspect, but there are ways of going about it. But without going about it in any way whatsoever, we'll never get to that stage of accountability. Now, already we're sitting with a problem in South Africa. You just look at the statistics of kidnapping over the last 10 years. This is from official police statistics, and you must remember as well that only there's a percentage that simply don't get reported as well. Now, the vast majority of kidnappings relate to financial crime, so a robbery, a hijacking, somebody kidnapped, it's called express kidnapping, where you grab somebody, take them to an ATM and withdraw all the money from their account. That makes up the bulk. There's only a small amount that makes up this kidnapping for ransom. But that said, the numbers have been escalating over the last decade. And what the experts tell us is that this is a symptom of a general decline of law and order. So while we see all other trends of crime, stubbornly remaining high or increasing, kidnapping is, of course, no exception to that.
In the interest of fairness and balance, we do owe it to, our viewers to put on the record what Nazir Osman has put onto the public record. He's particularly concerned, is he not, Barry, around the conduct of the police, not satisfied with the conduct of the police forensic social worker.
Quite right. He says that they were very forceful, that they used a term such as, we will extract a statement. I've extracted a statement from a 2-year-old, I can take one from a 10-year-old, was the comment which, according to Mr. Osman, was very concerning for the family. They were very concerned, disconcerting rather, by this particular, they seemed very forceful and aggressive. And that is what he claims is what turned the family off. They don't like the way or their approach to this. But again, we're hearing from the other side, and you listen to the official statement from the SAPS, is that even before investigators had an opportunity to even question the youngsters, it was at that point that the police say that this interdict was obtained against them. So, it would be very helpful if the family could be more forthright and perhaps come on eNCA and have a chat with you about that.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's not really for us to get a scoop or anything. But as we say, this implicates issues that are of public concern.
Absolutely.
Criminal law is part of, public law in terms of the branches of the law. Thank you for that. eNCA's Barry Bateman tracking that intriguing story that has so many twists and turns. And I do believe that we've not heard the last of that. We've not reached the full stop mark of writing that particular story.